It is Secret Saturday, Florida Maquis. If you are here, you are at the basic $1 level. This is the beginning of psychological operations training. Once you step onto the information battlefield, it can be overwhelming. You go back and look at things that you thought you knew, and then you suddenly realize that people were taking advantage of your lack of understanding of how the mind works. We're going to start with a very basic concept today called anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence, of course, is someone saying that a thing is true in all cases when really it was only true in one. Here, of course, we see this woman talking about anecdotal evidence and using anecdotal evidence to prove it. But we can use it in the story with Venezuela. Now, of course, they love to run pictures out like this of people that clearly are poor and don't have a lot of food. They have, of course, the open refrigerator. It's the anecdotal evidence that says, because this group of people is starving, therefore the whole country is. It also states that, well, it doesn't state it, but it's hidden in the subtext, that there wasn't starvation before a certain point, and then because of ABC XYZ thing that occurred, then the starvation happened after it, or we're at least showing you this picture after that happened, the one thing caused the other. And that's where everything falls apart. People just make the assumption. Why? Because pictures like this tug at your heartstrings, and you get out of your thinking mind, your thinking brain, and into your feeling emotional side. And that's where your brains turn into mush. And when I say your, I mean our, everyone's. And then, of course, they showed you pictures like this in 2015, 16, and 17, and because you don't remember seeing pictures like this in 2007, 8, and 9, you're like, well, what changed? Well, okay, this one guy, Maduro, took over for Chavez, therefore that must be the cause. And that's partially this particular fallacy called the availability heuristic that we have talked about at length. That they show us one tiny little event in the world, and they correlate two things, and then, of course, one causes the other, one is in direct relation to the other, and because they don't give you any other information or tell you about all the other things that are happening around it, they just let you make the leap yourself. Politicians do this all the time, especially when they're trying to demonize their opponent. This is another great fallacy that actually goes right along with it. It's called the post hoc or the correlation causation. I believe XYZ, and then all of a sudden this happens, therefore this caused that. And I know it seems like I'm repeating myself, and I am, because it's very, very important that when people look at... Okay, I'm just going to pull out Fox News here and see if I can find any fallacy in any random story, because they're everywhere. Okay, here's one. American Night controversy. High school student forced to remove Trump jersey at patriotic football game. Okay, well, first of all, what's the assumption that you make? The assumption that you make here is that, of course, it was because it said Trump that was the reason they made the person take it off, when there could have been a rule that you were allowed to have names on the back of the jersey, or you weren't allowed to have names of political figures. That could have been announced ahead of time. You don't know that. But you see, they just leave you with this little bit of information, and people always jump into what they're assuming is going to be the case. We also see this up here again, this whole March of the Migrants thing, where they talk about this statistically minuscule group of people, hundreds of Hondurans, head for U.S. border in mass migration, quote-unquote, march. Hundreds. Country of 378 million people. It's not even a rounding error of a rounding error. And of course they use this, the big website. They show all the people and the cars and all this. And over here, I don't know if you can see it playing at the same time. You've got Tucker Carlson talking about the violent left, using an anecdotal case here where there's thousands of cases of violence for all sorts of different reasons, all around this country. I caught a lot of heat for that issue with the, let's get a better picture up here. Remember the limo that crashed very recently? The 20 people were killed? And that ran across CNN and Fox forever. I wish it was still here because it was a great training opportunity. Because what was happening is this: people by the hundreds die in car accidents every single day in this country. But because that happened in New York, and both CNN and Fox are based in New York, they decided it was more important for the world to see that, their local problem. It was a local news event. It wasn't a national news event. 20 all at once, yeah, that's kind of an outlier. But every day since, many, many, many more people than that have died in car accidents, from California to Rhode Island to Texas to the Dakotas, Florida, everywhere. And you don't see them making the number one thing on Fox News. Now, I wanted to play this clip because this guy explains this very, very well. This is called false dichotomy.
Today we're going to be continuing fallacies of presumption, looking at the fallacy of false dichotomy. Now, false dichotomy is also known as false bifurcation or the either-or fallacy. Basically what this is claiming that there are only two options when in fact there are more. Basically you're asserting P or Q when in fact P or Q or R may be the case. Let's take a look. So, either you let me buy the new iPhone or I will die of unhappiness. You don't want me to die of unhappiness, therefore you should let me buy the new iPhone. There's probably at least a third option in which I'm pretty unhappy about not having the new iPhone, but I don't die. Either you should use a long flow-the-ride toothpaste, or your breath will smell bad. You don't want your breath to smell bad, therefore you should use a long flow-the-ride toothpaste. I was pretty proud of that one. Now, clearly, you could use other kinds of toothpaste, maybe that have a less cheesy name, and your breath wouldn't smell bad. You could chew gum, you could use mouthwash. I don't know. Either the Christian God exists, or the world could not have come into being. The world came into being, therefore the Christian God exists. Even most theists, I think, would say that at least it's possible that a different God made the world. But who knows? You might be really strict. To me, this seems like a really good example of a false dichotomy. That was false dichotomy. Also today we're going to be doing the universal negative. Yesterday was complex question and the universal affirmative. Tomorrow is going to be suppressed evidence and the particular affirmative. Watch a new video every single day for 100 days here at carneades.org. Use a long flow-the-ride toothpaste and stay skeptical, everybody.
Now that was a great breakdown of what I've seen a lot at the Florida Monkey YouTube channel, where I attempt to hold the current leader to some type of a standard. And of course, they come back with, you must have wanted, Hillary or some other, incarnation of her name. We also see logic fallacy here. Believe it or not, you can see it here. Now, this is, of course, the map that we've shown multiple times that shows all of these dark, gray, unspecified vessels north of Venezuela. Now, are they specifically called military ships? No. But when you take away everything that they for sure are not, like cargo vessels and tankers, and let's see, what else? Fishing vessels. And let's see, I think that's every one of them. Now, strangely enough, there they go. That was just a hiccup with the radar. Once you take everything out, or I should say the website, this is what's left. What other kind of boat could it possibly be? And this is a very odd thing. I just discovered this right now, that they've moved into this circular formation. Very, very weird. But maybe we'll do a video on that on YouTube. But the point being is that logic says that if it's not those things, there's only one thing it could be other than that. Now, Who's military? Who knows? We've made argument for both sides. But no amount of logic says that this could be just fishing vessels, or just this, or just that, or just the other. And this, of course, is normality bias. We've covered that before. So you can literally find these fallacies, and I know I jumped all over the place today, but you can find fallacies all over the place in advertising, in media. Literally, my comment section, the people down there are great about fallacies, because I challenge both sides of the argument simultaneously. Like making the allegation that Mr. Trump, I don't approve of him because he's not a conservative. That confuses people. See, they're used to the A or B. Either you like Mr. Trump because he's conservative, or you don't like him because you're not a conservative. Making the allegation that he isn't who he says he is, and not liking him for that reason, throws people into confusion. It's a third option. And there's the dichotomy that we were just talking about. So, there are, and I wanted to bring this up in a bigger picture. Let's see if I can do it. It's not going to let me. 1 second. There we go. All right. Now here, we see two different options. A cure for cancer is found, and someone wants to not patent it or test it or anything and give it away for free. And then, of course, in the second iteration of the situation, we see that the boss is more evil and that he wants to fire the guy because that would, of course, cost them a lot of money. This is kind of the counterintuitive argument of capitalism, if you think about it. And I just wanted to cover this because it does kind of dovetail in with logic fallacy. The first rule of business is never pay for what you can get for free. Now think about that logically. If the first rule of business is not paying for what you can get for free, but capitalism is the cure for everything, where literally you have to pay for everything, how does that exactly work? Because anytime you would give something away for free, that would be bad business, but the person that would be receiving it, would be looking for that as a good principle of business. It's literally the most illogical thing you could ever think of. When you think of the concept of adding a cost, a financial incentive to everything that we do, but business in itself is looking for opportunities to cut costs and not spend money. And that's why it always ends up being crony capitalism or some other kind of word you would use to describe capitalism other than free market, that people use to try to deal with their cognitive dissonance about it. So anyway, I won't jump around any more than I have already. We've been over a lot of stuff, but do understand that logic fallacy can be found all over the place, and sometimes just an image can show you multiple examples of it. And 9 times out of 10, you're not even going to have all of the information available to make any kind of a decision one way or the other. So we will leave it there. Thank you so much. Sorry for getting this up late, and I know it was kind of a helter-skelter training session, but we have a lot of videos out that cover these types of things. And if you want to go back and look through those and then do some research for yourself, go pull up a website you know you disagree with. If you're a conservative, pick up CNN. If you're a liberal, pick up something like Fox or Breitbart. And then go and see if you can find a logic fallacy that might make you believe that they're coming to a conclusion that really isn't true. So, have a great night, folks. Like, share, subscribe.